Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Hannah and this is Jar of Fireflies. Here I make videos all about my life as an Orthodox Jewish homeschooling mother of three. And today we're going to be diving into the question that I was asked the most during my series on my conversion story. And that is, how on earth is there modesty at the mikvah? Okay, so before we dive into the modesty issue, let me just quickly, in a very nutshell version, tell you what a mikvah is so you have kind of a visual going on here. For the purposes of this conversation, we'll be only discussing indoor mikvahs. Things like an ocean or a river can also be a mikvah, but like I said, for the purposes of this video, we're discussing the indoor mikvah. Okay, so it looks like a small swimming pool. Now the mikvah must be underground or an integral part of the structure of a building, but generally speaking, they're under the ground. So it's not going to look like a bathtub or a hot tub or something like that that is above ground. Those things are not mikvahs. The mikvah must consist of at least 200 gallons of rainwater that has been collected. And the mikvah is generally about chest high and kept at a very comfortable temperature. Every mikvah that I have been to is very clean and very nice. They're very well kept. And they are also accessible by stairs. So you can walk down the steps into the water, into the pool of water. Many mikvahs also have a handicapped accessible chair lift thing going on also. I don't know what those are called. Maybe it's just a chair lift. But yeah, that I've seen as well. Anyhow, so now you kind of know what the mikvah itself looks like. It's generally just a small room by itself. There's really nothing else needed in the room. It's generally speaking just the small pool in a small room. Okay, now in my conversion videos, I was talking about how when I went into my conversion on my mikvah day, because going to the mikvah, immersing in the mikvah is the actual part where I become Jewish, like that's the conversion part. And the mikvah itself is all about a change of status. So that makes sense that when you immerse in the mikvah, you have changed your status from a non-Jew to a Jew. So as I was talking about in my video, there were 3 rabbis in the room with me who are men, and there was also my female attendant. So how on earth is this modest? Okay, so I'm gonna set the scene and I'm gonna tell you guys a few stories about the mikvah to illustrate the privacy that is given to this situation. The first story I'm going to do is kind of go into more detail about my specific conversion where I was the one in the water. The second story that I'm going to tell you is where I was a mikvah attendant for a woman who was converting. So I saw it from the other side. And then the third, I guess it's not so much of a story, but I'm just going to kind of talk in general about when a woman goes to the mikvah with a woman attendant and there are no rabbis, just when a woman goes for a different reason. Okay, so that's the outline of the video. Let's dive in. Okay, so at my conversion, I came into the room first. There's an adjoining bathroom, which is where I finished my final preparations, and I came out wrapped with a towel around me so that I was modest enough for my female attendant who was there with me. She was my good friend. I chose her as my attendant, so obviously I was comfortable with her being there in that situation. And so she was the only one there at that moment. And I was wearing only the towel because when you immerse in the mikvah, you want it to be like when you were born. So, birthday suit. Okay, so like I said, I came out, I was wearing only a towel. There's no swimsuit or anything like that. When you immerse in the mikvah, you are naked. Hence the questions about modesty. Okay, so I entered the waters before the rabbis came into the room. So I walked over, I stood next to the side of the mikvah. My mikvah attendant held the towel up like this so that she could not see me. Like I kind of gave it to her after I unwrapped. And so she was not looking at me at all. I walked down into the water. I told her when I was ready, and then she could lower the towel just enough to see the top of my head when it was time for her to see me. She doesn't need to see me until I'm actually going under the water. Okay. So anyhow, she's kind of standing there. She has the towel where she's giving me privacy. Then the rabbis enter the room. Okay, so to set the stage of this particular mikvah room a little bit more at this point, I should say that from the top of the water, which was at about chest level, there was about this much space. What is that? I don't know. There was definitely room for my head to be above the water, still have a few inches of the side of the pool. So when the rabbis came into the room, they literally could not see me because the room itself was probably about as wide as this room, where they had, this room is, it's about 10 feet across. So they were probably about 10 feet behind here. And so they came in and they actually had to ask, they're like, is that you? And I was like, yes. So they really could not see me. So that's when we had the conversation part where the rabbi started to ask me more questions there in the mikvah, which if you haven't seen my conversion story videos, all of this is outlined like in detail in those videos. So go back and watch that if you haven't seen that. I will link to all of those in the description box below. Okay, anyhow. So I'm talking, they can hear my voice, but they cannot see me. And I didn't turn around to look at them either. So at this point, I can assume that they were facing the wall and not looking towards me, but even if they were, they would not be able to see me. Okay, so when it comes time for the actual conversion part, for the time when I'm going under the water, they do need to see that I have immersed in the water. And my mikvah attendant is also there to see that I am immersing in the water. Now, the rabbis are there only to see that basically the top of my head has gone under the water. They just have to witness this. My mikvah attendant, she is there to make sure that all of me is under the water and that it is a kosher immersion. It is not a kosher immersion if my hand is out of the water. It is not a kosher immersion if my hair is floating on the surface of the water. So she's there to make sure that those things are not happening, because she, as a woman, it's not so much of a big deal for her to see me there in the mikveh. So they basically, at this point, they would have just peered over just enough to see the top of my head go under. And then my mikveh attendant would announce that it was kosher. Had it not been kosher, she would have said that and we would have had to do it again. But she was able to say that it was kosher, confirm what they had thought that they had seen there. And I'm Jewish. Yay. So at this point, I'm then back at the side where they have they can't see me at all. And then they exit the room because their job there is done. And my mikveh attendant will tell me that they have left the room. It's okay to come out now. And then she has the towel up where she can't see me as I am exiting the water. And then I will take the towel from her so that I can wrap it right around myself. She's not looking and her eyes are like averted. And then I can go back into the adjoining bathroom and get changed back into my regular clothes and go on about my day. Okay, I hope that explains a little bit more about the modesty there while I was in my conversion. But now I want to tell you the story of when I was a mikveh attendant for a conversion, because this was really fun for me to be able to see it from the other side. So because I was not the one converting, I could just focus on the situation, and I was quite curious. So this one was at a different mikveh, and there wasn't so much space behind for the men to stand. They were just a few feet away from the edge of the pool. Different mikveh, different situation, years later, whole thing. So let's dive in. Okay, so on the day of my friend's conversion, we come to the mikveh together. She goes into the room where she is preparing, which is adjoining the mikveh room itself. And once she is ready, she came out and she got into the water. Now, at this mikveh, this was very cool. At this point in time, at this mikveh, whatever it was, they had this cool idea where they took a very large sheet, basically, with a hole in it big enough to fit around a head. And she was able to put that sheet there on the surface of the water so that when she went under, you can't see anything. So I thought that was really cool. So we put that around her. I gave that to her. She was able to position that around herself there in the water. And so that sheet is floating there on the surface of the water. Now, I should backtrack. When she went in, we did the same thing with the towel holding up and all of that. Okay. So she's in the water and she's basically just got her head sticking out and she's got this sheet all around her so nobody can see anything. I know because I'm there. Okay, so then the rabbis come into the room. Now, like I said, there wasn't very much space in this mikvah, so the rabbis could not stand very far away. They come into the room. My friend is facing opposite where the men come in. The men come in and they are staring at the wall the entire time, like away from her at the wall. And they do the whole thing again where they're talking to her while she's in the mikveh and asking her more questions and all of this. And the whole time they're just kind of like on the wall, looking at the wall, They're not even looking at their feet because she's down in the mikveh behind them, but she's down, but they're not even looking at their feet. They're kind of looking up and around, like totally the opposite direction of her. And Then when it was time for her to actually go under, I'm watching her, and when it's time, so the rabbis kind of turn around just for like 1 second to see if she goes under and whether or not it is kosher. And that's kind of, we do the same thing. And then the rabbis left, and then she's able to come out again, same situation, holding the towel up and all of that. But it was very interesting for me to be able to see how they were staring at the other wall. They were making sure to give her as just optimal privacy. And I felt the entire situation was incredibly modest, just how I felt mine was. So they're in that very different situation where the mikvah was set up very differently. She was able to have total privacy. The rabbis were able to not see anything that they shouldn't see. It was all good. Okay, now I'm just going to talk super briefly about when a woman goes to the mikvah with just a woman attendant. So not for conversion. A woman will go about a week after her period is over to the mikvah. We can do a whole other video about this, don't worry. But talking about modesty in the mikvah. So it's the same situation. So a woman will go in, she'll get ready. If it's a large mikvah with many preparation rooms, she'll turn a switch when she's ready, and then the mikvah attendant will come to her so that only because there'll be multiple preparation rooms that all open up to the mikvah. So then the mikvah attendant will come and get her when it's time. If it's just the one preparation room, then you'll just, come out and be like, I'm ready. And then, the attendant will hold the towel again so that the woman has modesty and privacy when she's going into the water. And then the woman will just look to see that she's going underwater and holding the towel up for when the woman comes out again. Same kind of a situation. Now with COVID, this of course got all crazy, and we were not staying in the same rooms necessarily. So we had some slightly different rules going on, I'm sure all across the country, but the way that we worked it out here was we would come into the mikvah, go down into the water, and then the attendant would just open the door just to see the head go under for the immersions, and then close the door, and then that would be it. So there wouldn't even be somebody in the room, but it was still done with extreme privacy and modesty for the woman there in the water. Okay, that I hope cleared up some of this whole modesty in the mikveh thing. I have talked to many women who have converted, and many men. No one has felt that their modesty was in jeopardy. Nobody felt that there was anything improper going on. Nobody felt that anybody saw anything that they shouldn't see or anything like that. So rest assured, myself and many others, literally everyone that I have spoken to who has had this experience has felt that it was very modestly done and has been very happy. So I hope that clears it all up for you. Again, my name is Hannah. This is Jar of Fireflies. I make a lot of content here about my life as an Orthodox Jew. So please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, because I would love to see you here again. And please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. It's a tiny thing, but it helps my channel out a lot, and it helps me know what kind of content you all like to see. All right, with that, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you in my next upload.